All right. You're in the room, right? Hey. All right. We're going to call this meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Okay. Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Todd.
First this evening.
Here. Councilmember Saper is absent. Councilmember Tull.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Just in time.
Councilmember Fitzgerald is absent. Councilmember Alvarez
Here.
and Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by Councilmember Stokes. All right, next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next up is comments from the public. Anyone from the public who should speak this evening, please go ahead, step up. And good evening.
Hello. I'm Jeff LaFurla, the optometrist on 18th and Swift. So I was wanting to find out, as far as the parking study, I think that's being looked at, is there any progress on getting that scheduled, or what the time frame might be?
No time frame at this
No
point.
time frame?
No.
So I was wondering, because it seems like that might take a while. And as more and more people move in, the parking on the street and around there becomes more and more of a challenge. So could we maybe put up the no parking signs on 18th and Swift in the meantime, and until the parking study is done, and maybe try to work out an arrangement where the people at Oxbow could park either in the parking lot down there across from the bowling alley? Because apparently the people that own that, which I think is Cedar Property Management or something, have an arrangement already with the Oxbow. Somehow, the two companies are tied together. So the gentleman I talked to there said that they might be interested in trying to work out something, but I think obviously they'd have to talk to North Kansas City, and there's some logistics in setting that up. But just wanted to see if we could try to get something arranged where we could make some progress. And then also there seems to be quite a bit of confusion about that parking lot behind the Oxbow, because I talked to one of the police officers on Sunday, and he was under the impression Oxbow residents were supposed to be parking there, which is, I think, not the agreement. So maybe getting a meeting together with the Oxbow and the Kansas City Police Department and the City Council just to kind of iron out details, because there's a lot of confusion, which is definitely contributing to the challenge. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Further public comments? Sorry. There you go. Good evening.
Good evening. Aaron Hansen, 500 East 26th Avenue. Trash pickup at the school in the wee hours of the morning is tiresome. I know Ms. Clark even talked about a line about the hospital getting picked up. I know some people over here by the library talk about it. I reached out to Waste Management. They said, talk with you guys. So I'm here talking with you. So can we figure out something? I'm pretty sure the city ordinance at 6:30 is when trash is allowed to be picked up. So that'd be really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 6, which is a memorandum of understanding with Northland Assistance Center for emergency cold weather overnight sheltering. And as council probably is aware, the last couple of months, we partnered with the Northlands Assistance, or last couple of years, we partnered with the Northlands Assistance Center to provide emergency cold weather sheltering. This last year, we allocated $30,000 for overnight sheltering, and of that $30,000, there's $3,151 approximately remaining. And so Rita, this evening, would like to talk about potentially using those remaining funds for additional emergency sheltering, not just in winter, but outside of that as well. And I will let Rita speak further to this
Thank you,
item.
Mayor
Thank
and
you.
City Council. Happy to write a check. However, we run into situations throughout the year, domestic violence, somebody who's stranded because of hospital things. Actually, the police department knocked on my door 2 weeks ago at 9 o'clock at night to find shelter for someone who had been stranded. So I think it might be easier for the city if you would consider just rolling those funds over without a designated cold weather label to it, to just general emergency assistance at the request of our emergency providers, the hospital, fire department, and police department. They all have my phone numbers. They all call me at all hours of the night and day, which are fine. We have a really good arrangement with the American Inn, and like I said, we don't mind writing a check tomorrow, but I think it might be nice to roll over those funds. And last year, it got really, really hot in the summer, so it might have even been nice to have some of that funding for that. We're a really small agency. We cannot afford to do this without your support. I think that it's been an extremely successful program. I think that we have been doing a really good job informing you on what we're spending the money for. If anybody has any questions, they can come to my office and look at all the 5,000 hospital hotel rooms that we've done. But I would request that you just roll it over and we can change the MOU.
All right, thank you. I will start off by saying, I truly appreciate the work you've done over the last couple of years. It's a very important service that we're providing.
Thank you.
And making sure that no one's freezing on our streets, especially in these coldest months. So with that, the ultimate action item here would be probably some sort of direction to staff on what council would like to see brought back. Councilmember Toll.
I'm in favor of using the funds, but I'd like to make some sort of a change in bookkeeping for our records for future use. So when we look at this next year and we say, this is how much we gave and we used it all, I would like to know that we didn't actually use it all, because we use that to look at funding. So I'm not opposed to using the funds in that way, but I'd kind of like to keep it separate as far as how we look at what we spent the money on. Is that a possibility?
Are you talking winter versus other sheltering?
Yes, exactly.
Between the two, okay.
Because we look at that from year to year. I mean, we looked at it this year from what we spent last year and what we had upped it to get coverage. So I would like to know what we actually needed for the winter before we discuss what we're going to do next winter.
And this winter, we've used exactly the amount that you have in front of you. My suggestion, Councilmember Toll, would be that if you choose to fund this in the future, that rather than designate it as necessarily cold weather, because we've done a really good job with managing those funds, and we use them for all the money that you have in front of you for cold weather, that we just in general do emergency lodging, so that if there are monies that are left, that we don't have to do another MOU. And I think I've had a good relationship with the city between COVID and these other fundings, and have been accountable that you might just make it as emergency lodging instead of designating. And then obviously, mostly it'll be cold.
I don't think the question was necessarily about designating, but more just on the reporting side.
Right.
Are you able to, when you book someone, flag in your system whether it was cold weather related or whether it was?
Well, I can
any
from
other
this
item?
point forward if you approve this.
Yeah, sorry, okay, I think that was kind of the, just reporting only. Yeah, so I'm sorry, go ahead. Councilmember Toll.
Why I really want to keep it differentiated from a bookkeeping standpoint, or however we want to do it, whether it's a designated amount, is because the reason why we developed this in the first place is the most dangerous part of winter is overnight, when we don't have public facilities open. Whereas the most dangerous part of summer is during the day, where we do have public facilities open. So I want to think ahead to a time where we do have to cut back on things that we're spending on in the future, which could happen at any point, as we know from the pandemic. And I'd really like to protect that money that we've reserved for the most dangerous part of winter, where we have nothing open or available. So whether it's just a bookkeeping thing that we refer back to, I just want to make sure we have that to reference, because I'm thinking ahead to times where we may have to cut back or not give as much as we would have liked.
So I'm going to follow along on that. Do you have any estimate on how much you believe you would be requesting for a full year?
Well, I requested 10,000 to begin with,
Yeah.
and the council generously gave me 20,000 when I came back to ask for 10,000 more. It's really difficult to answer that question, Mayor, because I have no idea what the weather's going to be like. So that is a really difficult question to answer.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out the additional. I mean, we hit the 30,000 in cold weather, and okay, I was just trying to get some sort of ballpark on what you think the rest of the overall.
You mean for the rest of the year?
Yeah, for the other. Yeah. Any
Well,
other
I
reason?
suspect that since we're only in May 1st, and I'm requesting these funds to be for emergency lodging for like domestic violence and others that the emergency providers asked me to spend money on, that we
Yeah.
may or may not have in our budget because we're so small, we'll spend that money
Yeah.
through the rest of this year, I can assure you. So
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
Councilmember Stokes. Right? What did I see hand?
I did just have one quick question. I really appreciate all you've done, and this is a really great program, and I really appreciate it. I just am a little nervous if we just designate money that's just going to be spent, if there's not parameters around it, like, is it just up to your discretion if they get to stay, if it's not, if that makes sense what I'm trying to ask? Like, I mean, I would like to house everyone, but obviously we can't, so could you respond?
Well, Councilmember Stokes, I understand that. And we have been really diligent with what we do. We do cold weather for cold weather. These additional funds, as I indicated, would be at the request of emergency providers, not at, like, somebody wanders into my office and I feel sorry for them. And that does happen, and I use agency funds for that. But we're talking about emergent situations, which can be numerous things. I use domestic violence a lot because that's a lot of things that the police department call me about. But there are also things, with the last time I had an interaction with the police department, it was somebody who had, their relatives were coming in from Michigan, and they were in the hospital, and they needed a couple of nights until the relatives could come in. We set parameters on everything. We do not put people up for months and months at a time. We just don't do it. I've been running my agency for 17 years now, and when we were using agency funds, we were very selective and without the parameters of the council to what we would do. We just put people up because they don't have a place to live. Matter of fact, I turned two people away today who were saying, I'm being evicted, I have no place to go. We are not able to provide those services. We do provide information for people who can do that, but we're too small for that to happen.
I would just add, I think Cam and Rita can probably work up some sort of list if that's potentially the right avenue on, within the MOU.
I think that would be very difficult. I'm
Yeah,
asking in
I know
this
that's the part
particular MOU, just say emergency lodging at the request of emergency providers. Because if you try to list every single thing that comes up, in my 17 years I've been there, even using agency funds, it would be an impossibility, and Tom would probably kill me.
Oh, he would never do that. Councilmember Smith, and then.
So, Rita, you're a saint for handling all this. I can imagine the phone calls you get at all hours. The cold, so when the cold weather piece came about, it's because we don't have the shelter overnight, and this is our best effort to take care of folks who really, really need it. And it was a concerted effort for cold weather. I think that, to me, I want to roll these funds over and put them in use. I think this warrants a deeper discussion on what sort of activities the city wants to fund specifically, because we do the Harris charity piece where we send money to the agency as well. That's a separate, unallocated, at your discretion kind of thing. But if we're going to get into not the business, but in the lane of helping domestic violence victims, I know there are places that are designated for that within the city. They're always overbooked. They're very busy. But if we're going to go that route, I'd like to have a deeper discussion, maybe at a future meeting about it, before we start pushing funds in that direction. But for this, I'm in favor of rolling these over. I think you've done a great job administering this program, and I trust you with the funds in this one.
Councilmember Smith, in regard to the Harris funds, when I write that grant, it goes for rent and utility assistance.
Okay.
So I need to clarify that
there you
it's not like at my discretion. When I write the grant, it's for rent and utility assistance.
That's fair.
And I wouldn't I would love to have, eventually, I would love to have this be a budget item when you'll have your budget meetings. I would love for it to be emergency lodging. I think if we start specifying what that might be, then it's going to be very complicated. It was easy with cold weather. You know, I worked with both chiefs the first time we did this, when the person died in Kansas City, and I said, nobody's going to die here. And I worked really hard to make this happen in the city. Thank you so much for embracing that. I worked really hard with the American Inn to make that happen. But, you know, we have this little funding here, so it's an opportunity for discussion as to how we identify these funds in the future, so that, you know, we don't have to come back and redo MOUs. And if we start specifying specifically what we're going to do with that, if you choose to look at that in the future, it would be very complicated. It would take a great deal of trust for the city council and the city to allow me to use those funds in the appropriate way. I think that I have a good track record between COVID and the funding that's been allotted, that I feel comfortable asking in the future for it just being emergency lodging. Understanding that cold weather would obviously be part of that.
Councilmember Toll.
I agree with what you said. I just wanted to say, for people that are out here that maybe haven't followed the great work that you're doing or watching at home, that when it's cold, we're not just giving everybody a hotel room. There's a very specific plan in place, that we go to the shelters first, and only if all the shelters in the area are full and not accepting anyone, then do we look to house people in an alternative location, just so that we don't have people with nowhere to go, literally nowhere to go, because we've looked all over, dying outside in the cold, cold weather. So we know what you're doing. I just wanted to make sure everybody else knows what we're doing, so we're all on the same page.
Thank you for clarifying that. And we had a lot more people this year, new people, into our program, which is fine, because you all had allocated the money for it. But I live down in Northtown, so I didn't see anybody wandering around in the cold, or in general, because they didn't have a place to go.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, hi. I don't think I've ever actually met you in person, but I think I've talked to you several times. Appreciate your work. I just want to ask, do you usually keep track of when you give them a room? Don't you make some kind of indication of what it's for? Like, you know, domestic violence, or no?
No, because our reporting system, we use a system called MAC. And so when I enter clients into the system, it just goes into emergency lodging. However, because I have those monies, I keep files for any funding I get, any grants that I get, so that anyone who wants to come in and look through the files, and it'll take you a few days since we had 400-something rooms this time, but my records are open. So I do not indicate what these things are for. I don't, because it just goes into a category of emergency lodging. What it does do, if it's allowed by North Kansas City Emergency Lodging Funds, is I can indicate North Kansas City Emergency Lodging Funds as opposed to other funds I use for other kinds of things. So if you do not approve this and somebody comes to me tomorrow and they're a domestic violence victim, that would come out of agency funds. If you do approve it, it would not indicate, and it's not just domestic violence, just the easiest example, that we had provided emergency lodging under this particular grant. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay, thank
And then
you.
do you also try to limit it to like one night, maybe two? I mean, don't you try to limit the time?
And I'm glad you asked that, since you're new to the council, because as I've explained to the council before, particularly when we have long runs of cold weather, it is cheaper to keep people at the American Inn for 7 days than for 4 days. It's $350 for 7 days. It's $59.99 a night, so you guys can do the math in your head. So when the math in my head says it's easier to allow them another night or two of, being somewhere safe, being able to take a shower, we provide food for them. If asked, we provide social service information to them. Then we do a week. So to answer that question, it depends on the circumstances. If it's 2 nights of cold weather, they get 2 nights under our current MOU. If there's going to be four nights of cold weather, or 5, we put them in for a week. It's just cheaper. I try to allocate the funds in a appropriate way, and I'm a penny pincher. So, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, and nice to meet you.
Okay. So with that, we don't actually have an item to approve this evening. So I think you'd have to bring back some sort of amendment for the memorandum of understanding at the next meeting. But part of this was to get further feedback on how exactly we could allocate that. It sounds like generally council is fine with allowing this to go towards emergency services. I'm fine with you also bringing back a longer-term contract and figure out what that looks like beyond these dollars for the future as well. What else did you need?
Would you like us to make that part of the budget construction conversation? So the MOU actually expired because it expired at the end of last month, which is kind of why we're here. We'd actually have to enter into a new MOU because the previous MOU for cold weather sheltering is actually expired.
Yeah, and beyond that, I'd be fine with allocating, depending on what council wants. Yeah, just make it part of the conversation. I guess we can come up with a number down the road here. There we go.
So my question is, since it expired, like last week, do we need to write a check and you guys write another check? Or, I mean, how does that go forward?
I feel like I've got direction from council that you and I can work and we'd have it on the next agenda. And it feels like you would have the ability to expend those funds should they be needed in between meetings.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, so I didn't have anybody say, why didn't you just write a check back? They haven't really approved it. So I wanted it to be on record that that's what we're doing.
Okay, so for the minutes, no one's objecting. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, and thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you very much.
Next item, number 7, NKC Fire Department Community Connect discussion item, and this will be Chief Hargis. Maybe, sort of, unless he wants to talk about Bloom.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The discussion for you tonight is we've recently went to a new platform for our scheduling, doing our national fire incident reports, and that type of thing. One of the perks that comes with that is a program called the Community Connect. It allows residents and businesses to voluntarily sign up onto our website, and if we have an emergency response to their location, they can give us locations if they have invalids in the house, small children in the house, any special needs, any special hazards, pets, and when that alarm response comes out, it comes up on our mobile data terminals in the vehicles, and that information will display to the crews coming in. It's the same with the businesses. They can put their contact information, and the business owners will actually be able to select a tab that if we have a response to one of their properties listed, it will send them a text message saying that we're responding to their location. It's all voluntary. It's confidential. The website says their security is the same as banking security. The only people that can see the information in our system is a couple of administrators of the program, and then when the alarm comes out, that information pops up to the responders that are actually showing up to that address. They can't go on and see that information otherwise. And
Unless you're part of this presentation right now. No, I'm kidding.
And I have flyers at the door for people to take. A couple of the people at the dais were part of a beta testing that we did. On the screen is an example of what it looks like when you log in. You put in an address and an email address, and that ties it together, and it'll allow you to fill out this information. This is actually one of my people that live here in town that filled that out. I kind of redacted it, so.
Left the address on there.
Oh well.
Okay. Close enough. Okay, anyway.
But-
okay, we're going to be pushing out this community.
We're gonna be
How you
pushing
doing
that
that?
out to the community through social media. The company actually has developed a website for us that we can send out the links to via all different social medias in order for people to sign up if they want to. It's totally voluntary, but it's for your use to help us help you guys. So I just wanted to let you know that was coming.
Thank you. I will note it is a very easy thing to fill out. They sent it to me as well, and I filled that out fairly quickly. I think within minutes I had some of my horrible responses back to you. They don't want to respond to my house based on the sample things I gave them. But it sounds like a good, helpful tool that'll help you guys with better responses. Councilmember Alvarez.
Is it up to the resident to update the information, like coming and going, people move and that?
The system currently has a default setting where the email that you enter into the system, you'll receive an email in a year asking you to update that information. Or if we don't think that's soon enough, we can set the parameters for follow-up emails for that information. So it does follow up that way.
Perfect. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I got an email the other day from Chief Hargis asking for all my personal information, so it's good to know that this was real. One thing I would say is, like, as that email goes out, just make sure it's not hitting spam filters so people don't miss it by accident. I don't know if.
Well, we probably won't email it out. It'll be a link on a social media website.
I mean the follow-up email, the one that goes out
Oh, okay,
the year
yeah.
after. So check out in a year, make sure that they're not just missing it, but sounds good.
There we go. Further questions, comments, concerns? Thank you. Next item, number 8, Bloom NKC update presentation. Kim.
Evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to introduce to some and reintroduce to others Russell Pearson with Box Development. He would like to give kind of an update on where we are with Bloom NKC, and he is coming to the podium right now.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me. Ross Pearson with Box Real Estate Development, and I was going to give a brief overview of our project. I understand a number of you are new to the council members, so we went through in detail in the prior council. So I'll do kind of a Diet Coke version of the overview, and the short summary is we're near the big milestone of closing and moving forward. So there's an administrative function for correcting the development agreement and issuing Chapter 100 bonds. And so we're, instead of going right to consent agenda, staff thought it would be best to provide an update and talk through the project and answer any questions. So with that, is there a clicker or? No, you'll do it? Okay. All right, so really briefly, we're a boutique real estate development firm. We focus on projects that we feel have long-term, the ability to be resilient. Resiliency is kind of our term. We don't like to use the word sustainable because it means something different to everybody. But resiliency for us means projects that are worth saving 100 years from now, which we've distilled down to really 2 main characteristics. We've done a lot of work in historic buildings and studied projects that have lasted for centuries. And they need to be architecturally interesting, and they need to be built out of durable, low-maintenance material, exterior materials. And so if either of those things don't exist, then buildings become not worth saving. So we're trying to think through projects and hunt for projects that are that have hundreds of years of potential as best we can in our short time frame. So we're a small firm. We've got myself and Justin Larson, Director of Development Services. Travis is our project manager and construction manager. And I don't have a headshot yet, but Richard Lanning is joining us as Director of Northland Operations. I think he knows everybody in North Kansas City, so excited to have him as well. The project site was the result of it's a city-owned land site, and it was a competitive request for proposal for developers. And it's I believe the last remaining undeveloped site in Northgate Village. So we started out, we always try to take a breath and think through what's the best use for a site. We studied the historic registrar for North Kansas City's historic buildings. I worked as an industrial broker for about 15 years prior to becoming a developer, and worked in North Kansas City quite a bit. And there's a very distinct, unique flavor to the reduced setback in North Kansas City that is unique to the rest of the market. So that was notable, and we wanted to make sure we integrated kind of the history of the area and with the energy of the future. It's kind of the goal. All of our projects have an anchor in some historic inspiration. So for here, we looked at the commercial buildings and the industrial buildings, as well as the history of the site, which was, I believe, Kansas City's first master planned live-work community, where am I correct? It was the first, I think, or at least the largest, where developers were building housing near their employment. So that combined with the history led us to the modern industrial style. So that is what felt like the best blend of the historic fabric with what is contemporary architecture. So Bloom NKC is a series of individual buildings that are designed as really they're for sale buildings, aside from Building B. But because it's an opportunity zone, the plan is to hold it for 10 years. So it's an interesting kind of answer there. The way this gets platted is with common area tracts. The alley in particular is a common area tract, as well as the parking areas around it. And then each of these are individual buildings that can one day be owned by different people. So that's kind of a term that we've created called vertical mixed-use townhomes that is based on probably the most popular, most quintessential product type in Europe, but just doesn't have a name here in the States. So we call it vertical mixed-use townhomes, and that's what comprises the center of the block. There's really three different product types. There's vertical mixed-use townhomes, which have small individual commercial office units. They're designed for one to two, 1 to 3 people. They can be connected, but it's really geared towards small business owners and executives and small companies. So it's kind of fostering entrepreneurship in that regard. And then the rear entry is the residential entry. So they're basically a loft above a commercial space.
Can you go back to the last slide real quick?
Sure.
Have there been any updates since we've previously seen, and maybe you're hitting this later, from the previous designs that we've seen to this current design?
No. So
Okay.
the building site has not changed. The Building B, which it's based on the Palmer House historic building, we're going through some recent renovations due to some user interest on the interior of that building. But the site work package and all the rest of the buildings are in for permit review and have not changed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was it. Sorry.
So just some exterior elevations. These are what we call Building A's. They're 2-story retail office. You can kind of see the vertical mixed-use townhomes as you go by down the road there. We're calling it Building B. We'll have a flashier name. We've thought of a few things. But it's essentially the massing of the Palmer House, but with contemporary demands. So the first floor has a clear height that works for restaurants. The original building did not. It was 12 foot. As best we can tell, this is 18, things like that. So we have a floor-to-floor ratio that's contemporary and multiple entries, so it's designed for flexibility long-term. This is a view down the alley through the residential portion. Just kind of shows a cut section of really the main floor of these units. The back is a garage and an entry landing, and then you have living room, dining room, kitchen. We wanted to go true loft, so all of these units are lofted with a 2-story open area, and then bedrooms on the 3rd floor. And site has not changed. It's a very nicely landscaped project. There's a shared open area in the center of the site for community gatherings, and there's a big focus on walkability, bikeability. So this is along the Burlington corridor, road improvements along the west side of this, and then walking through. For comparison, this is our Bloom Shawnee project. We just won a capstone award for the Business Journal for this, but this is a different exterior design. It was far more contemporary than I guess they're both contemporary, but this was based on Shawnee's sister city in Erfurt, Germany. I actually traveled to Erfurt with my wife to meet with city staff and get hands-on, do some research on our anniversary trip. Didn't have to go as far for North Kansas City research, but that is really a courtyard style. That has the parking is a different parking dynamic. Parking's on the interior versus the exterior, so comparable. And then there's our running list of kind of current project status. So short version is nearly everything's complete. We're kind of at the final stages. We're in for permit review on the site and most of the buildings. We're adjusting a few things on the inside of Building B. So the structure looks like everything's not going to change there, but it affects MEP and core stuff. So we're pausing that. And then we are working with the electric and gas companies for coordination on, we were working on it before, it's just a matter of timing. And then there's a Chapter 100 bond issuance. The bond plan has been approved, so this is normally a consent agenda issuance, but that's the remaining step there. And then brief update, we've had timing wasn't amazing for us. There was early on a MoDOT surprise that we discovered. Stormwater was planned to come onto the site to a large enough, so we had to redesign the west side of the site with a retaining wall. And right as we got that figured out, there was a number of cost escalations that occurred, and that required coming back and revising the plan because the pro forma broke with those two components in place. So all that's behind us at this point. The construction costs have started to come back, which is good. And then we had interest rate escalations, which was caused pause. And then we had this fun bank closure where the Silicon Valley Bank closed. Like the announcement came about an hour before our final loan approval for the project. So we had gone through. There's like a committee level and then a higher level. Every bank calls it something different. Planning Commission, City Council, I don't know. It's kind of like that kind of thing. And we had gone through the first level and 100%, everyone loved it. And then the same day we submitted for permit was the same day Silicon Valley Bank closed, and basically the lender said, we're putting a temporary moratorium on all development loans. So it wasn't us, it was like still just an issue. So we pivoted and had gone through a reaction moment of what do we need to do to not have this kill the deal, because it was a blow. So we thought through, well, we're going to have to start over with another lender. We're going to have to go through what would their objections be. We looked at phasing the project. So we thought through, well, if we broke off building B from the rest of the project, we could have phase 1 and phase 2. We went through all kinds of iterations. We really don't like to value engineer our exterior of our buildings, but we are considerably higher than the standards, which is kind of the goal of medium density development. So we trying to maintain the high value. Unfortunately, we haven't had to do that yet. I don't plan on it. But the standards are set high, and we were trying to phase it to compartmentalize risk and all these things. We have got a loan that does not require phasing. So we're now, momentum, this has all been the last couple of months. We're now submitted for permit on everything but building B because of that break, and it looks like we'll be back submitting that within 30 days or so. Depends on now timing of MEP and structural kind of things. So we're moving forward, but it'll ultimately be a slightly phased project, but not the question mark of how many, whenever we it's going to be we're going to build this and then we're going to figure this other part out. This is now, we're going to build them both, and this will just be delayed by, fortunately, in that same time window, we found some users for building B that we're now able to turn it into a silver lining and modify some components that the previous layout wasn't optimized for. So we're going through that right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Certainly still excited for this project. A lot of thoughtful design aspects in this, and it's just a great looking project.
Thank you.
What other questions we got? Councilmember Toll.
I don't have a question. I just want to say I was very excited to see this on the agenda. I know it's usually something that would just slide through, but it's been a while, and it was great to see the designs again, and I appreciate you coming to talk to us. I'm very excited for this project.
Thank you.
And, question for staff. So going forward, what do we need next? Agenda, probably an amended development agreement. Is that where we're going towards here? Okay.
We kind of wanted to have Mr. Peterson meet with you, refresh everybody on what this would be. Our hope would be on the May 16th to bring forward the action documents, which would be the amended and restated development agreement and purchase agreement, as well as the Chapter 100 bond documents that would need to be done and formally approved by the City Council. I do believe that, you've got the slide up.
Yes.
The hope would be that we would transact the land at the end of May and that construction would begin in July.
Can't wait to see that moving. Thank
Can't
you.
either.
What else we got? What else we got? Anybody else? Questions, comments? That's it. Well, appreciate you coming this evening, and look forward to seeing this get moving. Thank you. Number 9, parking on East 22nd Avenue, discussion. Who's got this one?
So I'll take this one. The memo in your packet was drafted by Chief Freeman. So this is actually brought up time and time again, as well as Councilmember Fitzgerald, who was sad to not make the agenda.
The person that
he
wrote the
brought-
memo's not
I
here, the
know.
person asked for it's not here. What are we doing? Kick it.
I'm late to the memo, and I'm here. It has been a perennial question over time as to why is parking only allowed on one side on this particular street. So staff kind of huddled up and looked through. We made some measurements and met with public safety, and really there isn't a reason from a public safety or city perspective as to why there isn't parking on both sides of the street. We did want to have dialogue with the city council to get direction. Is this something that you would like us to bring forward to change?
This isn't my neighborhood. May I start with your ward here? I'm not putting you on the spot here. You have any opinions on this one here? All right, please. I'll let you kick off then. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes, I think actually it's a good idea. Most of the residents or the houses in that area, sometimes they have shared driveways, especially nowadays, everyone has usually more than one vehicle per family. So I think most of the streets do have parking on both sides, so I see no reason for it not to be. So that's.
Thank you. There we go. Councilmember Smith.
Okay, so this one is 29 feet wide. I'm not an expert on like lane width or any of that kind of thing. How much space are we talking? If two, like say, F-150s are parked one on either side, which is pretty standard around here, how much space are we looking at in between?
I like it. We look at Public
Enough.
Works. Like, no,
I don't know if I looked at this specifically on this one, but usually you have like, well, on-street parking be a little bit different, but 8 feet usually is what you'd hold back for on-street parking.
Okay, so we've got 13 feet in the middle.
Can a
Is
fire
this-
truck make it? Is the fire department concerned about this?
We are not concerned about this because it's,
as 20.
most of the other one-way avenues and over there are the same way.
Okay.
One-way streets and avenues. So it's typically not a issue unless there's something out of the ordinary.
Okay, yeah, the one thing that I was worried about, and is not related to this, because this is a one-way street, is I drive 23rd Avenue pretty often, and being two ways, especially the 800 block, it's weaving in between, trying to figure out how to get through there, but this seems fine.
Yeah, we looked at that. The only thing we're going to make sure of is the setbacks for us to be able to make the turns. But we were involved in this discussion. We have no issues at all.
Perfect.
Further, councilmember comments? All right, can we generally get some, I guess, agreement here to move forward with this? Is there any opposed? There we go. We'll go that route. None opposed. All right, bring that back at a future meeting, please. Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the
Move
consent
to
agenda?
approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Now I'll let Crystal take back over.
Item 15, strategic plan update 2023.
All right, so I'll kick off. So, we've discussed this several times now. Kim has gone back per council request and restructured the list based on our previous feedback. So I really just want to jump in and open this up to council and ask if there's any further amendments to what is in the packet and what is being presented here. If not, then I would take a motion to adopt this. And then after this section, then I'll have Victoria come speak on her item. But we'll clear up the general list here first. Councilmember Clark.
Just for a quick clarification, under, improve and sustain, nope, just kidding, here I come. Infrastructure, number 3, just so that, ward members know and constituents know. Number 3, it does say address erosion issues. That's not in any sort of order, it's just these are the top 3, and that's it. Okay, I'm just reiterating.
Yeah, it's not ranking.
Yes.
Not important.
Right, put it off to the side until it reaches number 3, right. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Further comments, questions, concerns? If not, is there a motion to
I
approve
move
this?
that we move
Adopt
to
this, I guess. There we go.
adopt this strategic plan that is very detailed and well put together.
Second.
Get all that for the minutes. No, I'm kidding. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. That motion carries. And item B on this, I believe Victoria wanted to present something on one of her items from the Parks Department. The second was someone to my left, I think. No, someone else to my right. It came from somewhere. Amy was the second. There we go. Yes. Are you retracting that? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Good evening.
Okay, so we are going to, Victoria and I are a bit being a team on this. So we are pivoting a little bit here. This would be a continuation of our previous conversation about the remainder of the city's American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funding. We kind of had a couple of conversations about this, and basketball court has come up a few times. Per previous discussion, the city council had asked Victoria to maybe present, instead of a multi-court, a single-use version of what that would look like. She is here today to kind of talk a little bit about the options that the Parks Department is looking for, but she has asked me to kind of remind the city council of how much money is left within the ARPA funding. After the city council's previous actions, there are $725,000 and change left in that account. So now I am going to hand it over to Victoria.
Good evening. Good evening. So when we talked about the basketball courts and doing a multi-use court the first time, there was a lot of questions like, how will the ball bounce and what's underneath here? So after some more investigation, if we did something, this was the original item that we had talked about. Underneath is a 2 to 4 inch crushed stone so that it'll accommodate the drainage, and then the turf carpeting is much like what you would find at Deg Park. So yes, the ball will still bounce. It won't be like your traditional basketball court though. So I asked him to kind of rework the project and what would that look like if we did an actual basketball court with a concrete base. And so, we forward one.
Next page, please.
Next slide. There we go. So this would be if we were to do a more of a traditional basketball court with a concrete base. This would be kind of phase one of a possible project that we were looking at for doing the soccer fields. So this would be, I believe it's 90 by, sorry. It would be a 50 by 90 foot court. And so the whole project put together, Shu, if you'd go one more slide. So that's kind of a better look at it. So you would have the parking lot would be to the, east.
What space are we looking at?
So this is the green space right across from the park center.
Got it.
Okay, so to the east would be the parking lot. There's a sidewalk that's leading up to it.
So where the mouse was there, well, okay.
No, on the other end, other side. There,
Parks
right
would be
over there is the parking
or
lot.
the Parks building,
Yeah.
or the building.
And then our parks building is across from the parking
Farther,
lot.
okay, got it.
And so the sidewalk would lead up to it. There would be a space for seating. And then the basketball courts, a little play area. And then our future project would be to add the 2 turfed soccer courts to the south of the benches. I think if you go one more, Shu. There you go. That's kind of a picture looking at the overall project. But just for the basketball court, the first part alone, we're looking at roughly $200,000. Now, there's a lot of variables in there, like are we able to work with our concrete contractor and get a much better price for the concrete? So there's a lot of still things to explore. But as far as the ARPA funds, I just wanted to come back and see if there's any more feedback before we progressed anymore.
Perfect, thank you. Any more feedback from council there? Councilmember Smith.
I'm still quite lost as to where this sits. Is this?
It's between the Parks and Rec building and the practice, and the high school practice.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, the one piece of feedback that I have is like seeing this, I appreciate you like looking into the different surfaces and everything. The layout with the soccer goals on either end, I think that's what those are.
Yes.
And
So
then
the 2 green strips are 2 soccer fields.
Oh, I mean, if you go back a
Internal
slide.
to the basketball
Yeah,
area.
so like under the basketball goals, I imagine those are soccer goals.
Right. So the thought is that we would go ahead and leave those soccer goals in place. So if we are doing some sort of tournament, then that could be just a practice area for teams to warm up.
Like a concrete
Yeah.
practice area? Okay.
Yeah.
This design hits the eye a little odd. It looks like a prison yard. And I'm not, like, I don't know. That's all I think when I see it. Hopefully it would be adorned a little differently that would make it look not like a prison yard.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, but like if it's chain link fences and whatnot. I like the idea, I like the concept. I'm still, and this is less about the design, a little confused about the interaction of the ARPA funds with this sort of project and how those play in with the parks budget and the city and how all of it interacts.
I'm going to turn that back to Kim.
Yeah.
So it would actually be very similar to several of the other ARPA funding we have received. I'll take in case in point the Burlington Water. So the Burlington Corridor project has a water main underneath it. That's part of that. We actually received Clay County, we received $700,000 grant that is specifically tied to just that component. So should the city council kind of like this, they could tether a certain amount of money that would be earmarked just to paying for the basketball courts. The city council, ARPA funding has the kind of limitation where you must earmark it, you must expend it or attach it to something by a certain date, and then it must be expended or counted toward that original use. So we're not close to it, but we do need to have those funds spent by 2026. Which means if the city council were to, through the budget process, kind of say, we're going to stick, and I'm pulling numbers out of the air here, $200,000 of the ARPA funding toward the support of constructing the basketball goal. It does sound like the Parks and Recreation Department is kind of looking at this as a larger project, so it would help fund just the basketball component of this particular project. Very similarly to what we have accomplished with the Clay County on the water distribution ARPA funding.
Okay. And correct my understanding of the ARPA funding. Was there an allowance for replacing lost revenue, or is that something that was separate?
So we did accept it as lost revenue. However, when we made that distinction, we didn't separate in our reporting the fact that we wanted to hold true to the spirit of what the ARPA funding was hoping to accomplish. One of the things that the spirit of the ARPA funding wanted to accomplish was to identify challenges during COVID and use those funds to remedy this. So outdoor spaces, water distribution, those are all kind of things that were allowed expenses if you were to not do the revenue replacement and to do it as just core assignments of that funding.
So if I'm just trying to think flexibility-wise, like did we not take the revenue replacement? I thought we did. Okay, so we did that. Doesn't that, in my mind, I thought that just reset the requirements for having to do anything specific with, like, we should still use it for good projects like this, but I didn't think that tethered us to, like, having to earmark it and spend it by, and, this 2026 deadline. I thought we, like, lost revenue, stick it in the coffers, and now we can do what we feel as it comes up.
We did when we reported it as lost revenue, but we also reported it in the fact that we would try to spend it in accordance to its original guidance.
Okay.
Now, if that is a difference of the will of the council, we can amend that. We are mandated to report on those funds until they're completely spent. So as long as you have those funds in a restricted account, which we do, we have that actually on our books as a restricted account. That way it does not get commingled with other city funding. That way from an audit perspective, there's a clear line. You may remember that every time we've ever pulled money out of that was through a budget amendment. We did that for accounting purposes. Because initially, some of the concern we heard was that money would just go into and get commingled into general city revenues.
I mean, I thought that was kind of not criticizing, but I thought that was the idea of, once we said it was lost revenue, we are spending it as replacement for lost revenue, and it would go into the general city coffers. Now, internally, like, we could earmark it, and I understand, like, the spirit of the agreement and all that, but it does seem like it puts a little bit of a pressure on spending this money and finding projects. It's kind of like a problem hunting for a solution, rather than identifying the best possible uses. But with all that said, I think this is a cool project.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. I was going to say, I was getting ready to cut that off there. I think we are starting to wade outside of the topic of strategic plan here. And really, this whole item probably just needs, I think, be brought back at a separate meeting as well, right? There's no specific question here, just looking for additional feedback, right? Okay, additional feedback on the basketball.
I feel like since it's on our strategic plan and it's been just voted on, and now here's the funding option for it to be checked off of a major list, I mean, I just don't understand why we don't just say yes. I mean, in my mind, just say yes, go forward and earmark the money to go toward these basketball courts. Knowing that there's 725,000, this is roughly 200,000 of that. I don't know. It's something that we want to accomplish within the next year, so I don't know. It only makes sense to me.
Other councilmember comments? Councilmember Toll.
I'm in favor of moving forward and less prison yardy, which I assume this is just a quick sketch, that it would look like it's for children and, you know, bright and lovely and all of that. So, yeah, I'm in favor of it as well to move forward. Because we all know the projects take time.
I mean, okay. What exactly, is there a motion or something that we're doing here? What is the
So-
specific?
What we could do is weave it into the upcoming budget proposal, meaning we would show that money being transferred over to Parks and
Okay.
Recreation for this particular project,
Okay.
and we would have a definition in there that that funding was allocated toward specifically the basketball courts.
Perfect. Budget discussion item.
Yeah, because if you
Okay,
think
Clark.
about it during COVID, I mean, everybody was encouraged to go outside, but also not touch people, be around anyone. And parks were being used, and they couldn't get any money for it. There was no, people were still trying to gather in some ways, but they couldn't gather any money for it. It's a major revenue loss, and I think this could be really huge for them if we're going in the past. I know we have this new initiative for tax increase in the future, but I just feel like this is right in front of us. So whatever process needs to happen, I feel comfortable earmarking the 200,000, I think is the quote, and then bringing that back, I suppose. Yeah.
All right, there we go. Another budget item. We got two of them tonight. Racking up. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you. Number 16.
1520 Swift Revised License Agreement, Bill number 7774, ordinance number 9571.
Okay, I'll kick off a brief one here. This item is related to an encroachment license agreement for the building located at 1520 Swift. In February, council rejected the previous design plan that was submitted that included a stairway and a landing outside of the building. In the resubmitted plans, the stairs and landing for the new egress would actually now be inside the building, and the door would be flush with the current external wall. The doors would be outward swinging and would swing into the city right away, which is why they would need an encroachment license agreement. And if there's any further questions on this or this process, we have Shu and I believe the applicant here as well.
I would just say there are two doors.
Yeah,
instead
sorry,
of
two
one.
doors. But the same thing applies to both, right?
Exactly.
Both stairwells, both landings will be inside, with the exception, as Tom told me earlier, an additional pad of concrete that's basically connecting the building and the sidewalk.
That's correct.
There we go. Councilmember Smith.
So I appreciate Todd's here tonight. I appreciate you taking another look at this and figuring out how we can get it done without putting some big metal stairs on the sidewalk that would maybe have to get removed for utility purposes. This is a much cleaner presentation, and it looks like, I'm pulling up these pictures here, it looks like even if the door swings out, it's not even into the sidewalk, it's into like this kind of grassy area with a little bit of concrete next to it. So I appreciate you redrawing the pictures and working on this. I'm sure it wasn't a simple solution as it seems, but I'm a big fan of what this looks like.
I saw the look. I think we recognize still in city right away, but he's
Yes.
just referring to the sidewalk portion itself there. Yeah,
Yeah, technical term.
it doesn't swing in the sidewalk,
There
it still
will be a
swings in.
sidewalk connecting the doorway to the
Correct.
existing
There we
city
go.
sidewalk.
I'm thinking
Yes.
the
All right.
pedestrian.
Part of the
yeah.
license.
All right, is there a picture? We got this.
Yeah,
I
we
think we
got
got it. I think we got it. There we go. Let's go with a motion here. Any other questions?
First reading?
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No. Motion carries.
An ordinance adopting and approving an encroachment license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Bat Acquisitions LLC regarding real property generally located at 1520 Swift in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7772 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9569.
That is the wrong
Nope,
one.
just kidding. Bill number, I'm all
was my
underlining
next
it and high-fiving myself. I moved on to the wrong page. Bill number 7774, for the record, be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9571.
Second.
Okay, any further council member comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving an encroachment license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Bat Acquisitions LLC regarding real property generally located at 1520 Swift in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri. Item 17, 1599 Iron Street, Taylor's Corner, final plat, bill number 7772, ordinance number 9569.
I'll go straight to Shu. I'm not going to explain this one, but I think we got a couple simple items here.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
So we have two final plats here on this agenda. This is one of them. This is a general location at 1599 Iron Street. It is also known as the Iron District. What this one is happening is the property owner has acquired a 17-foot abandoned railroad right-of-way located directly to its east of the site, and they want to utilize that area to expand their property and use of it. So they have filed a final plat with the city. It has been heard by Planning Commission, and staff is in support of this final plat to consolidate these two lands so the property owner can construct the expansion.
All right.
First reading?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Taylor's Corner, 1599 Iron Street, North Kansas City, Clay County, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7772, good job, Amy, be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9569.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Taylor's Corner, 1599 Iron Street, North Kansas City, Clay County, Missouri. Item number 18, 1401 Iron Street, Western Logistics Express, final plat, bill number 7773, ordinance number 9570.
This is also another final plat located directly south of the property we just talked about and on the same block. This is a property known as Western Logistic Express. They are currently used for warehousing and outdoor vehicular parking. The property owner also have acquired a 17-foot strip of abandoned railroad right-of-way, and they want to consolidate the land so they can further pave over it and reuse it for vehicular access and parking area. This is also the site that we have approved a right-of-way encroachment because of that 1 foot, that 1 inch of the building that has been historically constructed, if you have the memory of that. So this is the same site. The final plat has been reviewed by Planning Commission. The recommendation is to approve it without conditions, and staff is in support of it.
First reading?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Western Logistics Express, 1401 Iron Street, North Kansas City, Clay County, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7773 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9570.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Western Logistics Express, 1401 Iron Street, North Kansas City, Clay County, Missouri. Item number 19, approving accounts due and payable by the city through April 28th, 2023. Bill number 7775, ordinance number 9572.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
I move, oh, not yet.
No, not yet.
And we're falling apart.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through April 28th, 2023.
I move that bill number 775 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9572.
Oh, there needs to be a second. Anybody?
Second.
There we go. Call the roll, please.
7775.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through April 28th, 2023.
Number 20, staff comments. What do we have this evening? You don't have to fight over it.
We don't fight. We don't fight over. We don't fight over with firefighters. I have a quick update on the Perinomeo. I know we had some requests and questions and interest about Perinomeo. So staff has met with our structural engineer and has received a report on it, and we're going to move forward with some immediate risk that we're going to address at this point. There are some loose items over the mail, so we're on top of that, and I believe we're going to move forward with a formal procurement process for the rest and the remaining of the entirety itself, and we're working with our on-call engineer to develop a request for a proposal at this point. If you're interested in any of the other items, you can follow up with me on this particular topic.
I just wanted to give everybody a quick update. Last month, you approved a contract with us to do training at the old AMF bowling alley. I just want to let you know, during the time we had that, we spent 547 man-hours there during that 6 days training. So it was very well received with the crews, and we got a lot of good use out of that. So thank you for doing that.
Fantastic. What else we got?
So I just have a few quick things. One thing is a quick reminder that our pet vaccination event is this Saturday, so please bring your pets in to get a vaccination. Sorry if I took that from anybody else. Another quick thing is our next meeting on May 16th will be a joint meeting, at least the beginning component will be, with the Parks and Recreation Board as well with the City Council. And we will be discussing River Forest Park and giving a preview of what that looks like. We do have some questions and input that would inform that project as it moves forward. So just kind of, that will be kind of a little bit of a different thing, especially with our new meeting structure. But we do anticipate them, everybody kind of sitting down here again as in unison. So that is all that I have for staff comments.
There we go. Now we got council member comments. And you may notice tonight on the agenda, I also had liaison reports added. This is certainly always a good opportunity for the liaisons to present council updates from their respective boards. Parks and Library, I guess, would be the only real two liaison roles that we have at the moment. And ESC liaison. And probably 20 others. But those are the three I remember. And tonight, we'll kick off with Councilmember Stokes.
I'm really excited to be first to comment tonight. Hopefully I can make a full sentence. As far as liaisons from the parks, they're crushing it. Lots of projects going on. Excited for a basketball court. Excited to have Kath back on the board. I don't know the process, but I also have heard about the trash pickup at the high school before, and I don't know if there's something we can do as city staff, but that would be probably something we could look at. And I appreciate everyone, and have a great night.
There we go. Thank you, Councilmember Todd.
Great job, Katie, leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I think you did great. So kudos to you. As always, I really appreciate when anyone comes and makes public comments. I would love to see even more of North Kansas City community members getting involved and bringing concerns. We've seen now a few times that a community member comes and brings up a concern, and we're concerned then about it too. So just a reminder to anyone watching, your voice absolutely can be and should be heard. And just to note that, yes, I don't even enjoy it when my dog wakes me up at 3 a.m., so I can't imagine hearing loud noises near my house that early in the morning, so I definitely am in favor of trying to find some solution if we possibly can. I don't know what our reach is there, but definitely in favor of that. Everyone operates better when they get good sleep. Thanks.
I'm going to say the exact same thing. Thank you to Aaron for coming to speak. He's actually the second person I've heard bring this up before between last meeting and this meeting. And so I would like to see an ordinance having some time restrictions on when trash can be picked up in the city. His time frame that he gave was 6:30. We can look at neighboring cities to see when they have that time blocked off. But an ordinance for North Kansas City would be helpful, and we could eliminate the 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. dumpster pickups that wake everybody up around them.
I was going to ask, is that already an ordinance of some form?
You're pretty sure
Well, you know what? How about this? We'll follow up on that next meeting for sure.
We'll look at the contract. I haven't looked at it in a long time.
Well, but he's, I think the concern is more additional parties, not parties that we're under contract with. Yeah.
If we had an ordinance, it would cover anybody we contracted with from now into the future.
And people we don't contract with as well.
Yeah. So thank you to Aaron for coming to speak. I wanted to thank the council and the staff for all the thoughtful discussion and work at getting the strategic plan, and the matrix is lovely. I like that as well. I also wanted to thank Victoria and the Parks Board for acting so swiftly on getting something, I think that's going to be really wonderful for the community, and working well together with us to make that happen financially and in reality. So I'm very excited for the basketball courts to come, and thankful to council for acting on that as well.
Here we go, Councilmember Smith.
All right. I want to say a big thanks to Public Works for getting the alleyways near my house knocked out, and the other one that's getting done right now. I saw the fire chief and the Public Works director holding a meeting right in the street there. It's pretty great to see. No, thank you for all that. And it's beautiful outside. Flowers are in bloom. Go outside and get your vitamin D. Check out our beautiful parks. That's all.
Councilmember Alvarez.
I don't really have a lot to add to that. I did want to, I think Rita's already left, but I do appreciate all the work that she's done over the years. I think it's a really good program. And that's about all I had. So,
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Councilmember Clark.
I will also say, Aaron Hansen, man of the night, thank you for showing up and talking trash. It was there, guys. But I'm excited for trash to be picked up after 6:30 a.m. or, not before, because I also suffer greatly. I look forward to our additional meeting to discuss River Forest Park with the Parks Board. I know you guys are so excited too, I can tell. And again, thank you, city staff, for the strategic plan, making sense of all of our pointy arrows and things. And that's it.
That leaves me, and I have nothing. So there we go. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Adjourn.